Welcome to the AI for Interior Designers podcast, where creativity meets cutting edge technology. In each episode, we dive deep into the world of artificial intelligence and explore how it's revolutionizing the interior design industry. From AI powered design tools to the latest trends and innovations, we've got you covered. So plug in, relax, and let's embark on this exciting journey together. Welcome to AI for Interior Designers podcast. P.S. This intro was written by and voiced by AI to sound like your host, Jenna.
Hi, designers. Welcome back for episode 76 of the AI for Interior Designers podcast. I'm your host, Jenna Gadusik. Today, I want to talk about where this is all going in the near future, okay? I'm not here to give you predictions as to where we're going to be with technology in 5 years, let alone 10. It's just not possible. And when I get that question, I'm always like, I don't know. I don't know. How am I supposed to know that? How is anybody supposed to know that? We can take our best guesses, but it's all fiction. Like there's no, this is where we're going to be in, like with flying cars. Like one of my most favorite movies is Back to the Future. And where is all the cool like hover skateboards? I guess we do have those. I guess we do have hoverboards, kind of. They just look a little bit different. But like, where's all this cool futuristic, 80s inspired future stuff? Like, it's just, I'm not even going to guesstimate as to where AI is going to be in 5 years because it's just silly. Like, how would somebody know that? Like, how would somebody know where we're going to be in a year with AI? There's just so much uncharted territory and people that are just kind of like loose cannons, we'll say. Like, I just don't know where decision making is going to go to be able to make predictions. I think the tech is pretty steady and it's kind of just like, how many guardrails are going to be put on it? Is it going to get in the hands of the wrong people? So those are things I'm not going to sit here and give you predictions for. Who knows? Unless if you have a crystal ball to look in the future. I don't know. But what I do know is what I've been doing for the past 2 years, and it's tangible and it's real. And it's something that I think that most people, if given the opportunity, would have done or would do in this point in time. And now AI is making it so much more accessible for us all to be able to do these things. So I'm going to give you my predictions. I'm going to give you also where I'm at, like literally living this life with the predictions that are tangible to actually say, I really think that people will be doing this. And then we'll see in a year, we'll see in 2 years. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, but here's what I've been doing. Okay. 3 years ago, I started teaching AI for interior designers. My first class was in November of 2023, and it was all about Midjourney. And at the time, I focused on that one tool and that one area because that's what AI for interior designers does. It's a lot of images, it's a lot of inspiration, and that stuff is time consuming, right? Like creating models, creating furniture models is time consuming. I've said this so many times, but why didn't they just give us the model so we don't have to rebuild it every single time in SketchUp or CAD? Like, why? We're trying to sell your product. But now we can take photos and literally put that stuff right into these beautiful AI generated visual communication tools for images versus saying, let me go render that for 16 hours and then come back for you to say, nah, I don't think so. Those things are a thing of the past. And it's interesting to me because I do meet with so many, designers and firms and just industry adjacent companies. And I see so many antiquated ways of doing things. And sometimes, being as deep in AI as I am right now, and especially after my meltdown mode that I made it through, I see why some things are still done, the way that we always used to do it for efficiency, because it's always been done that way. And people know that it will get done in this way and what to expect from it, right? But AI, like, it helps. It makes it better and faster, and you can do so many more things. But there's this weird double-edged sword that I'm starting to get to here 3 years in. And that is that I have AI'd so hard that I'm like, where does it start and where does it end? Like, where do I have this tool set up to do this and where is that tool to do that. And you guys aren't going to have all that. I just do because I, learn and teach and explore and experiment and all that fun stuff. And so my job is literally to figure out different ways of doing things for your different ways of doing things. So I feel like I've gotten a little convoluted, but I've also heard from others that are feeling like, let me just say, I've gotten convoluted, but I feel like I am reining it in now. We are at a point where everything's kind of like, I don't want to, like, we've gotten to a point where I know which tools I want to use and what they do, and that they're only going to get better from there. Okay. So, not that I feel like I have too much going on or that there's too many tools and different pathways. I felt that way a month ago. But now I'm like, oh, well, I can eliminate this or I don't need that. Or here's the end of that rabbit hole that I haven't been able to find since setting it up, 2 years ago. So, there's certain things where I know that I have felt like the heaviness of the AI tools just being too much and not as helpful as they either were sold to be or they were too helpful. And I was able to do so much in that tool or large language model that I built something bigger for myself and then just kept building and building and building. And then at the end, I was like, and I don't want to say the end because I'm still in the middle of all of it, but I got to a point where I was like, is this saving time or are you just creating more work for yourself? And I've heard other designers say that in my classes. So I'm glad it's not just me. I hate that I'm now putting you all down rabbit holes of AI, if you're a nerd like me and you like to explore it, where you have seen some of these tools and then you're like, well, what can I do now? And then how can I automate this? Or I've been wanting to work on this area of my business. Maybe this tool can also help me enhance this productivity. And then you get into this like productivity spiral where you're like, workflow, 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 like, and then where are they all working? What if they break? Like it's so much. It's so much. And that I feel like is what AI is, like this entire race to be the best and the race to do it first and not put guardrails on that should be on, or who's marketing better and who's doing government contracts and not doing things that we think that they should be doing, like it's so much. It's just a lot. So here I am, almost 3 years in to teaching this, obviously using it way more before 3 years, where I was just like, hey, I'm going to teach AI. And I felt this burnout. And with that burnout of doing all the things and just stacking and stacking and stacking, and then like productivity is through the roof, but also breaking and new and then replacement. And it's just like this constant merry-go-round that I feel like I've been on for 3 years, and it's like, what's the next best thing? And then, people will ask me something in a class and expect me to know it. I'm like, I'm one person. I have just the same amount of hours in a day that you do, and I've got a 4-year-old and a 9-year-old and a husband that I like and wanna hang out with. So, I'm not up with everything all the time. I'm just not. I mean, I'm up with the majority, but I can't be up with everything. And so I had to kind of come to terms with the fact that what are you going to focus on? Because it can't be all of it. And it's not, for me, the visual side anymore. I started doing that with the first class because ChatGPT at the time sucked. Like it was fine. Like we could use it. Images weren't out, like it was just a chat bot that was pre-trained on everything from like 3 years before, right? Or 2 years or whatever it was at the time. And so it wasn't effective, but then it grew in effectiveness and all these other models. And then, I started exploring and started canceling and, consolidating and all of that over the past 3 years. So it's been quite a journey to get to the tools and functionality and workflows that I have now, and none of them are perfect. However, I feel like I am like on the brink of removing the excess and finding the path that I want to take and then building on that path so that it's more customized to the needs that I actually have and that I'm trying to solve. Okay. So what that looks like for me is what I predict will be the future, at least the next 2 years, of where small businesses, just employees in general, could potentially be going. And that is more of a customized app looking thing. Okay. And I don't want to say chatbot because they're not necessarily chatbots. I don't want to say it's always AI powered because it's not. Sometimes we now have the tools as normal people, not, web developers, not, a data scientist. Like, we don't have to be tech people to be able to create the things that we want to create now, which I see the irony in all of that because the same group of tech people that now have taken away their own jobs so that we can create the tools and tech that we want with our simple terms, but because we are living it every day, we know what we need and we don't need to necessarily communicate that to another third party person that is a web developer or, just we'll say like builder, developer, like in general, okay? Not just web, like apps, all encompassing. We don't need to be that or hire necessarily. Sometimes you should, especially for more intricate things, but we don't need to hire them for everything. We now have the power to do the things that we have wanted to solve, but might not have had the means to, or the connections, or just know that it was even possible, or maybe it wasn't even possible back then, but now we can do it. Okay, so let me give you an example of what this means. I started building apps about 2 years ago myself, exploring the Gemini developer studio. You all can do this, okay? Nothing I'm saying here, like, I'm not like, you need to go hire me to do any of this, though you could. I just am not taking as many of these projects because I like to take on and build and really focus on the clients that I'm working with. And so I do this, and I have been doing this outside of my own job for the past year. And I love it. It's really fun because everything's really different. However, there's only so much bandwidth, and I need to acknowledge that. So you can do this too, okay? To an extent. There are going to be certain times where you do need to bring in a professional. And when I mentioned earlier, the irony is not lost on me. These developers are the ones that have notoriously created tools that conflict with professional interior designers. They're the ones that have built the apps that say, well, is your living room ugly? Here's an app that'll make it look cool. Here's, farmhouse style, and here's Scandinavian style. And it's just like these presets that you can go and like, that's not developed by a professional. That was developed by a software engineer, right? And they wanted to make a buck. And then they wanted to sell that to somebody else so that they could then cash out and get some profit. They have a skill that is to build technology, to build software. So of course they were going to do that. That's who would buy this. That's the biggest group of people that they could sell to, because everybody has a house. Everybody wants their house to look nice, right? Not everybody can hire a professional. So they've been cutting us out for years. So the irony now is that they have built something so good in the world of AI that we now have the technology to do it ourselves. And we can now start cutting them out of the things that they have always told us that we needed them for. We don't. Okay. Again, if you don't know what you're doing, you might. Now give it a year. We'll see kind of like how this is going to be going, because it might just be so instant and so easy for everybody to do it that like they really will cut themselves out entirely. But I think that now what they're finding in the development side is very much what we're finding in the design side, in that when people do go and make their own solutions using technology and AI, there's a lot of like junk in the code. There's a lot of silliness that happens when you're building. I'm not even going to go there, but it's every time. And if you're not like coding, and if you are vibe coding, what they call like basically using a large language model to build the code and speak to it using your regular language and not have to talk to it like you're a coder. That's how we're building these things. However, they're getting better. And since I started doing this 2 years ago, what I first started doing in Gemini Studio was wildly different than what I build now. I do still build in Gemini Studio. However, I had to jump through so many hoops to be able to like deploy my apps so that you all could use them outside of where I built them. Not only that, but like building one single app to have a feature and then you keep adding these features because you just can't stop. It's time consuming, and it's not like, here's an idea, I'm going to prompt this and it's going to be an app immediately. You make this idea and then you have to like use the app, and then you have to brand it. You've got to make sure every button works, every export works. Your API is connected. So it's actually calling in the large language models. When you build something like this, you start with bare bones right now. Like, it's like, here's your concept. Now go activate every button and every feature now that I've given you the wireframe from this. And I'm not saying you can't do this. I think that if you're into tech, you should be doing this. This is so fun. This is the future, and it's only going to get easier. So if you can go and explore, the studios and create mini little apps, or if you're using Claude, they're called artifacts. Okay. So in Claude, artifacts are basically just little mini apps. So it could be like a pricing calculator that you created in a conversation, but then you saved it as an artifact. Artifacts you can't really like link together to make like a dashboard. All right. So if you're like, I want to replace my project management software or my task management tools, you can't. You can literally build your own tool that does what you want it to do, not what like Asana told you that it has to do, or ClickUp, right? Or the intricacies of ClickUp. Maybe you just like some of the features, but you're like, this is a beast and I don't need it all. I don't want to pay for it all. How do I just create this one app for myself that is now linked to my calendar, that is linked to my email, that's linked to my storage unit, whatever you want to do. And when I do this, it does that. Or when I have a call, it does these things. Basically, these little mini apps that I'm talking about, or potential artifacts too, depending on what the use case would be, they're basically prettier workflows. Okay. So instead of me going to, and if you're familiar with Zapier, like there's different things that we could go to Zapier and we could say, connect this to this tool. So if I get an inquiry here, then they get this over here. And then it adds it to a lead generator in my CRM. Like, now you can still use these central hubs that are basically like these middlemen make, or Zapier, or other things. However, for some of these smaller, like one-off, this is my calendar builder, this is my team task organizer, these little apps can now either live inside of your large language model in artifacts or wherever you want, or you can grab the code and activate them like on your website, which is a little bit more involved, but you can. Okay. Or you can go to Gemini Studio or like Base 44, which is a whole app building program. That's actually one of the ones that I had first started on and was testing. And then I was like, it wasn't there yet. I've heard it's gotten so much better with backend, because the back end of this whole process is what kills you. You can build a beautiful app internally and in your development mode, right? But then how do you get it out into the world? How do you get it out of there so that it still works on the internet just as well as it did when you were developing it in that, environment? We'll say, I'm just going to keep it's not as techy, okay? I'm trying. I know some of it might be, sorry. So if you wanted it to be like useful on the internet so that other people can use it and not just where you built it, there's steps to do that. And 2 years ago, when I first started doing this, that was my disconnect. I could build apps for days. However, the backend data and authorization for logging in for security purposes, or just getting the right APIs to call and do and connect to your tools, that's the biggest issue. So if you can figure out those things, and I'm talking small here, I'm not talking like big apps, like that's a whole other thing where that's also what I have evolved into building. But generally, you're going to start with something small. You're already probably doing this. If you create, a proposal from a transcript in a large language model, you probably are getting something out. And a lot of you might still be getting out like a document that you can go, or a PDF, and you can go and edit it afterwards. And that's what you're asking for. But you could be asking a pre-programmed app or an artifact, if that's the way you want to go, because that's the best like starting to do this type of thing. Artifacts are a great like entry point because it's accessible to everyone here. It is literally built into your Claude. Okay. So if you were to start with something like that, then you might just say, hey, I actually want to turn this proposal into a landing page on my site that's not searchable. You can turn off your web search for it. But this way, instead of a PDF, which ban my existence, you know that, we can send a literal landing page, which is a landing page is a website page on your website that does not link to anything. You just have to have the link to land there. Okay. So let's say you're doing a proposal. Let's say you do a slash and then you have the name of your client or whatever you want to call it at the end. When you send that proposal, you could send them a PDF, you could send them a Word doc because you can ask for any format that you want. But I like to ask for HTML. HTML is basically a code block that I have then said, here's all the info. Here's the proposal, here's the look of everything. Here's mine. Here's the transcript. Now, when you create this for me for this client, you're going to create it as my branded HTML. It's also what I have my skills. My skills that I have are branded. Like, this is how, when you do this website page, this is how it looks. So that's why you see my websites looking very consistent these days, because it's all HTML block. So I sit there and I, can chat with it. I can edit my HTML code because basically that's what you literally are going to copy that and paste it and put it in that landing page under a code block. If you build your own website, it's very easy to do. You drop it in and then you're done. You can save it, send it right over to your client. They can save it, send it to whoever they also need to have eyes on it. And it's easy. There's no PDFs like to be lost or clogging up your storage. And then like, where did I put that? Or what version are we on? I've been doing websites like this for years. I mean, like my e-design drive, I did self-hosted design projects, which were literally like private pages on my site before it was acquired by Mydoma, and then I switched over to Mydoma. But I would build out these landing pages on my clients for my client's project manually, line by line, line by line. And then they would go to my site. So I could see like, through analytics, when were they on their landing page? What time did they log in? I had all of that information and not a third party. So we're coming back to that. Okay. We're coming back to the time where we're not in spreadsheet mode. Like, please get out of the spreadsheets. I know some of you like love the spreadsheets, but we're not there anymore. Like, yeah, you need them, but why don't you make them pretty? We're in a profession that values aesthetic, and that's not just in real life. Like, I don't want to use an ugly computer program. I don't want to use something that was not looked over to prettier. Like, where is the design of this? And that, I think, is the major disconnect that we've always seen between software developers and our industry. Yeah, they can make a tool that does kind of what we like asked for, but man, are they ugly. Like, I don't want to use like really any of those. I'm going to be honest, I think half the time designers start trials because we're always crowdsourcing. It's just what we do. Like, it's always in the Facebook groups, which I try not to be in, but anytime I'm in there, I'm like, oh, they're still looking for programs and softwares, because we just always are looking for the next best thing, because none of these tools were built for us to do exactly what our business model does. They were built for the masses, generally by somebody that was not even in our industry. They just asked for outside perspective and then kept building those things that they were told by a pool of people that they needed. So these features have just kind of like grown and evolved. And then so hasn't the subscription cost, so hasn't the seat pricing. Why are we spending so much money on software? Like, it is the stupidest thing. Like, I have been actively canceling as many possible tools for the past 2 years as I can, because if I can make my own calculator, if I can make my own task builder or proposal builder, and it's either a mini app that others can use outside, where I built it on my team, or it's part of like my team account or my Claude subscription for $20 a month. I pay 100 because I'm on the max account just because of what I do, but general people will pay $20 a month for these large language models tools, and they do live in there. So that's kind of a caveat, is that like, if you decide that you no longer want to use Claude or ChatGPT or whatever, you should have a lot of this content saved elsewhere so that you can just pick it up and go. For me, that's why I like having the HTMLs, because I can drop them into my site. I can run them with different models. So if it's basically like, something that's a feature that does something on my site, I can drop it in as that format of code, but then I wire it. I'm not going to get too far into this, but then if I need it to function with the AI, you can't just drop HTML code in there. Like that's just dead. Okay. So it's just basically like, here's something pretty. You can kind of click through it. You can like interact with it a little bit. But if you needed AI to be a chatbot inside of that code, I would need that code, an API, to like actually fire to an account that I'm paying for, because to be able to power these tools outside of your large language model, they need a working API that is billed. So anytime that you use your tools, you're being billed to use them independently. Okay. And it's like fractions of like a cent or whatever for little generations, but they do add up, and they're adding up quicker than ever right now, which is a great case for not going directly to these popular large language models and going local with large language models, which means that basically these models are run from your computer. And this has been a thing since the beginning, obviously, but they're not as good. And that's the problem. So these other models, it's the latest models, they're bigger, they're faster, but you do always run that security risk because they are connected to everything on the internet. Where if you are running a local model on your computer, it'll still have the functionality of whichever version model you downloaded, and it can run your stuff locally. But it's not something that is like, powering or connected to the other models, because you had to download it and put it on your computer so that it's protected. It's not connected to anything, which is the benefit. But certain use cases, you just can't, it's just not feasible right now. So that is also where we're going with this, especially with the models getting better. They just haven't been as good. So like for certain tasks, people have been creating local apps, local tools, local softwares and programs for various companies that are running locally. However, we just currently still need to be able to use these large language models that are the more public and well-known ones, because they're better and they just have the most information. So get ready, because that's all going to be changing and becoming more mainstream, I think, especially since what's going on with Claude and like just all of these tools that we're finding little weird loopholes that like are probably not the safest things. And I'll give you an example of what that could be in Claude too. There's things called plugins inside of Claude, and really anybody can make them. Okay. So plugins are things that you can plug in to be able to do different things. And GitHub is also where I go and I build and, back up some of my apps and just all that stuff. But they also have their own like developer area where you can go and get these different tools. Okay, so I'm just going to try and keep it as simple as possible, but you can go as a developer and grab these public tools that other people have shared, and then you can hook that part up into your app. Okay, so there's these public areas where you can start to grab plugins, I guess is the general term here, and bring in little helpers to your tools. However, we can't have nice things because everybody likes to ruin everything. So what I'm finding is that some of these are, they go through being launched and they go through like the security process, and then they get approved, and then they're able to be a plugin that you can use inside of Claude and go download it. However, some of them are malicious, and some of them could be taking your information, and some of them you don't even know that. So I follow a lot of security people because that's not my wheelhouse, but so important, right? And I like to stay up and up with all of that. So this is something that I think it was last night or this morning that I saw. And of course this was coming. I just thought that maybe there would be better security with some of these tools that internally they were offering. Sometimes when you go to like an app store, it's like, okay, well, I never know what I'm going to get. But when you're in a large language model, you kind of thought that you could trust what the plugins are. And I don't really trust anything at this point unless if I know that it's like Gmail, and even then I'm like, it's Google. Like I trust Google to an extent, but I also believe anything can be hacked, and maybe it already has. I don't know. The amount of spam I get, probably. It's crazy. So, it's just we're in this weird place where it's like we're becoming dependent on this technology, but also we want to be safe about it. We don't want to be paying astronomically, which is now going to be where we're going because once they get us hooked on it, they're like, okay, well, here's some other cool stuff. And then, now you got to pay for all your tokens and they just tripled in cost or whatever. We're going to be getting there because all of these AI companies, they invested a lot of money and it's very incestuous in the way that they did it. And I don't know who's getting paid on it. And I don't know what the benefits are quite yet. I have an idea, but I don't think it's for us. So that's why I'm always cautiously optimistic with these tools, but also very pessimistic with these tools because I want you guys to be protected. I want to be protected, and there's no there's no protection. There's no protection. And so that's why I see a lot of companies going this closed source route, developing their own tools and programs and doing it in a way that is not utilizing, 50 tools. It might be one or two. When you first start, it might be a ton of different apps that you then later turn into a dashboard so that they're all functioning together versus these tiny little things that you have created and then they don't speak to each other. But eventually you turn them into a dashboard and they do, and then it becomes a whole workflow. That's where I have been at. So for 2 years, I built many little things and I was like, let's connect this. And that is now the whole AI social club. Literally, it is proposals, it is lead generators, it is my CRM. I'm looking at it right now. It is my app studio where you all can also use the apps that I've been talking about building, like my paint schedule builder. Like that one is awesome. I love that one. I have inspiration things in here for using actual product and then putting it in and, furniture mock-ups to grab fabric to frame and print a PO out or send it over to your client, create room images with that fabric to frame mock-up that you just created, drop it into the space. These are the apps I have inside of the app that I built, which is the AI Social Club. It is a membership that I have. It's also part of my certificate program. You get access to the app studio. Not only that, but I wanted to build an app for myself. And this is just going to kind of get into the ideas that we all have for how we want our business to look, but the technology hasn't been there in an accessible or financially accessible way, or just didn't exist. Because I know you all are creatives, and I know that the ideas and your goals for your business are probably way different than what your business currently looks like right now. Because when you started this, you conformed to what was available. And then you grew and expanded with the connections and the tools as they expanded, or you found other solutions to do the thing that you wanted and then kind of hooked it up and hoped that everything syncs and works, right? None of us really have a workflow that we love. I talked to so many different companies in this industry. I'm not even going to put a number on it. Nobody has a workflow that they love. I haven't talked to one that's like, this is perfect. I don't even need AI. I love what I do. Everything works perfect every single time. I'm so efficient. Said no one ever. Okay. This is why you create the solutions for yourself and you cut out the technology when you're able to. Easier said than done. I get it, especially if you are not considering yourself a techie. But this is giving you the power to do that. And even if it feels scary and daunting right now, give it 6 months. Like, I can honestly tell you where we are 3 years from when I first started doing this, where we are 2 years from when I started building the first iteration of my app. And I'm so happy that I waited because so much has changed and now has finally leveled out where I feel good about it. But this is now giving you the power to do these things. And if you can't do them now, which I would say probably 25% of you that are listening to this right now are like, I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go try it. I'm going to go to Gemini and try and build some stuff. I'm going to go to Claude Code. I'm going to build some stuff, whatever, wherever you want to do it. Just go try it. Okay. And the best way to do it, if you're in AI App Studio for Gemini, is it's a prompt, like, or a picture of your dashboard that you envision that you made in Canva. And you're like, here's what I'm thinking, you can drop all those things in there. Or if you're using Claude, you literally can like go to Claude Code and you're like, here's an app idea that I have. You can preface it and create a mock-up in just regular chat. I mean, regular chat with Claude, regular chat with Gemini, like anywhere. You can say, I have this idea for an app. Let's talk about it. Then I want you to build out an HTML code for me so that I can at least view it and see how it all works. And that's kind of working as your prototype until you really start to get everything hooked up. In that regard, I'm talking about like the larger apps, those that are a little bit more ambitious. If you're like, I need a pricing calculator that I can just have as a go to every time I come into Claude, not only is it trained on skills with my brand voice, so it knows how I sound, it also has examples of different things that I've done before, has my pricing structure, it has, how I format all of this and my brand information. I'm going to turn that into an artifact. All you need to do for artifacts, which are again those mini little one thing apps, is you need to just go and have a conversation, build it, tell it to make the little mock-up, and then the top right corner it says like download or copy or whatever, or publish. And then you can publish that to your team or keep it for yourself and then send it as an artifact so it's on the left side of your menu in Claude. And then you just have it there. That's just for you to like go use constantly. So we're we're working I think in this place right now where a lot of people in our industry are coming to use AI a lot more. And so hopefully this will help you to be a little bit more efficient, even just getting started with these small things like artifacts, but then hopefully help you to understand that like what's in the pipeline and what is already available, but maybe you're not quite there yet with this journey. You're still dabbling and seeing how you can even use these tools in a way that's helpful for you. The next thing is going to be like, I'm going to create and deploy an app for myself that is either a full dashboard and does all the things that I can cancel other subscriptions for, or it is now my new central hub for my project management. And it, if I take in a website URL, it will scrape that URL and it will come back and add all the product info for me that it sees on that website. It'll grab an image if it's able to. Sometimes they can't because blocking images on some of these sites from large language models. So you'll copy it, paste it, put it into the tool that you built. And then by the end, you have now created an entire little app that takes in URLs and then basically creates your entire spec sheet for you right there, or schedules, or exports a PDF, or builds your client presentation. Like that is what this does. Okay. Like if you can do it in a chat thread in Claude or Gemini, you can make an app to control that conversation. Let me say that again. If you go to your regular Gemini, ChatGPT, or Claude, and you feel like you're having the same conversation over and over again, or you're trying to create images, and every time you're like, I do this, I do that, and I'm not getting the images that I want, or it freezes and it just keeps giving me the same thing, or I can't edit this corner, and every time it changes everything else, I don't do that. I don't create images that way. If I did something one time and I know I'm going to do it again, I create an app for it. Like if it's a repetitive thing, if I'm doing it enough, blog posts, podcasts, create something that makes that repetition easy. Once you've created it, you've gone through the process, you know how it works. See if you can animate it, automate it. You want to automate it so that it's now like, if this happens, that happens, this happens, you do that, and then you publish here. Done. Taking yourself out of it. Watching, making sure that you had that editing eye, making sure that it's right and that it came out proper. And some of these things will never be fully automatic, right? Some of them can be. Some of these things are really silly and we shouldn't have to be doing them all the time. So that's where we're going. That's where I'm at. Okay. I just wanted you to know because it's coming fast and it's exciting because I don't like paying for so many subscriptions. And so for the past 2 years, I've been really trying to eliminate and find solutions that will work for all of us that do everything so different. That's the other thing. I work with everybody in this industry. Everybody uses a different tool. Everybody has a different process. I I can't just teach one thing to a group of 200 people and have it apply to 200 people. It just never works that way. So, with my field day, yeah, my brand name is AI for interior designers, but I talk to every corner of this industry, like literally every corner. So I can't just teach you how to do a proposal for interior design with this example because everybody needs to know how to do this. It can't just be interior design specific. And also some things, if I'm not marketing and, teaching directly to an interior design audience, I'm not going to tell trade secrets. I'm not going to go over pricing details and what goes into these things when I know who I'm teaching probably shouldn't know that information, right? Like there's a time and a place and there's decorum when it comes to teaching and, keeping the sanctity of our professionalism which is very quickly dwindling with this technology now being in everybody's hands. So I am just grasping at straws to maintain this little bit that we have left without just going out and blabbing my mouth to everybody that is not a professional on how to do these things. For me, that is a huge no no. And that's why this podcast exists, so that I can hopefully tell you in a more like, well, if I'm not an interior designer, why would I, listen to a podcast? Hopefully you're listening to this because you are adjacent in our professional tools, but also you would hopefully notice that I don't share prompts. I don't share certain things that I think that could be weaponized or lose business for somebody that could be a colleague of mine. I'm not going to do it. I'm just not. And I have too much integrity for that. So there are people on the internet that, first of all, are using my name of my company as their whatever on their socials now, 3 years later, after I got it. And they are sharing these things because all they care about is growing a really large Instagram following. I don't even want to be there for this. I want to be here talking to you or literally out seeing you or in a one-on-one class or in my app. Like I I believe that these things should be private, and that's why I am going to keep them private for as long as I can, because that is the value in this profession, is that we have things that are professional standards and secrets, and there's a time and a place to use them and share them. And that's why I leave my things vague sometimes, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I get really nitty-gritty because I'm talking to designers. And when I'm talking to designers, I'm going to talk design to you. But if you're not a designer, you get the general. That's it. Because you don't need to know. You don't need to take a job from my friend because you think you can go create an image now that I've taught you how to do that. I teach design professionals how to create these things because they already know their profession. They already have their workflow. Their technology just hasn't caught up to them. However, now you have both. You have the business know-how, the way that you want to do things, and you now have the technology to make that happen without needing somebody to build it for you, without needing to pay an arm and a leg for it. You can actually start canceling things once you start doing this and run your business the way that you actually want to. It's different times, guys. I'm excited for it. So I figured I would just kind of give you this little update for today because it's been a little while. I am taking this summer to regroup, like I kind of have been alluding to, and streamline and consolidate, continuing to do that and remove and scrub and just move forward lighter in the fall. Been doing a lot of brainstorming, a lot of building. Usually, if I'm quiet, it's because I am deep in the thick of something really, hopefully, fun for you. And I have been. So, podcast stuff, the only reason why I figured I would do today, I'm going to be totally candid with you, is because I got this cold email the other day. It was from somebody that said that they wanted to be on my podcast. And I don't take people that I don't know on the podcast just because I'm not trying to sell you stuff here. Like, I just want to talk to you about things. That's why I started this. That is literally it. But I didn't realize it was in the top 100 of I think Apple or something. And I don't have Apple. So I looked it up and it is, or it was the other day, but it was falling. And I was like, oh, well, first of all, I didn't even know. And I haven't posted in 3 weeks. So of course it is. I figured I would just, maybe be a little bit more consistent with my podcast because content is content. And that is literally why I started this podcast, is so that I could chop it up and make content, which I haven't even been doing because I've been so busy. So I made an app for that last week. I made an app that will take this, and I'm still in test mode, but I want to be better at showing up and using this content that I created for you and then being able to chop it up and do shorts with it and show up on social media when I don't want to. When I don't want to be making these videos and I can use something like this. That's why I do this. And then that's why I create apps to help me to be more consistent and better about it. So this summer I've kind of halted. I haven't sent out a weekly email for this is growing on 3 weeks. I have been updating, modifying, improving everything. I rebuilt my website. You haven't seen it yet. I have been adding to I'm looking at the app right now. The entire app is massive. I've been creating mini apps, more of them to put into my members area. This is what I haven't had time to do for 2 years because I've been traveling. Sometimes I've been over 10 days, sometimes for the entire month. So this is where I wanted to spend my time, but haven't literally had a chance to sit here and do that. So I paused. I'm just paused. I'm doing obviously things for my clients, but I am catching my breath, and I'm coming back this fall or, late July with some different things. And I'm really excited about it, especially for podcast stuff, something I've been working on and building, and it's different. And I hope you like it. So, anyway, that's it for me today. Next week, I'm not going to do a podcast. It is the 4th of July, and I will be in Vermont celebrating with my family and taking some time away because I'm from Vermont, and my sister's from, obviously, from Vermont too, but she will be coming in from San Diego. So whole family will be there for the week, and it'll be really fun. So I will not be here, but I will see you when I come back mid-July. All right. Well, till next time, you guys have a great day. See you later.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the AI for Interior Designers podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and tune in next week for more AI tips for your design business. See you next time.